The letter arrived in a crisp white envelope, its edges worn from travel, but the words inside burned like fire. "You are not welcome at this year's company gala," it read, the cold formality of corporate jargon slicing through Elena's heart. She stood in her tiny Brooklyn apartment, her hands trembling, the weight of rejection threatening to crush her. Elena Martinez, 28, was no stranger to struggle. Raised in a small Texas town where whispers about her differences followed her like shadows, she had moved to New York City with dreams of becoming an artist. Her job as a janitor at Pinnacle Enterprises, a sleek Manhattan tech giant, was meant to be temporary, a way to pay the bills while she sketched in her sketchbook during lunch breaks. But it was at Pinnacle that she met Sarah, the bold, brilliant marketing manager who changed everything. Sarah Collins, 30, was a force of nature. With her sharp wit and unapologetic confidence, she commanded every room she entered. Her short blonde hair and piercing blue eyes made her stand out in the corporate world, but it was her kindness that drew Elena in. They met by chance in the break room, where Elena was cleaning up spilled coffee and Sarah, exhausted from a late meeting, offered to help. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, from art to dreams to the quiet pain of hiding who they were. By the time Sarah asked Elena out for coffee outside of work, Elena knew she was falling. Their love bloomed in secret, stolen moments in quiet corners of the city. They held hands under the table at dimly lit cafes, shared kisses in the rain-soaked streets of Greenwich Village, and dreamed of a future where they could be open about their love. But Pinnacle Enterprises was not that place. The company prided itself on its progressive image, with rainbow flags in the lobby during Pride Month, but behind closed doors, whispers of intolerance lingered. Elena and Sarah were careful, never touching at work, never speaking too long in public. Yet somehow, someone had seen them, perhaps a glance too long, a smile too warm, and the news reached the higher-ups. The letter was the result. It didn't name Sarah, who was too valuable to the company to be targeted. Instead, it focused on Elena, the janitor, the disposable one. "Your presence would disrupt the professional atmosphere," it stated, as if her love for Sarah was a scandal. Elena felt the sting of humiliation, but worse was the fear in Sarah's eyes when she showed her the letter. "We'll fight this," Sarah said, her voice fierce. But Elena shook her head. "I can't lose this job, Sarah. I can't afford to." That night they argued for the first time. Sarah wanted to confront the company, to demand justice, but Elena begged her to stay quiet. "You have a career here," Elena whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'm just the janitor. They'll fire me in a heartbeat." Sarah's jaw tightened, but she relented, promising to keep their relationship hidden. The gala came and went, and Elena stayed home, sketching furiously to drown out the pain. But the wound lingered, a reminder that their love, so pure and beautiful, was seen as a threat. Months passed, and the secrecy began to suffocate them. Elena's sketches grew darker, filled with jagged lines and stormy skies. Sarah's laughter, once so bright, became strained. They loved each other fiercely, but the weight of hiding was tearing them apart. One night, in a moment of desperation, Elena made a decision. "I'm leaving Pinnacle," she told Sarah, her voice breaking. "I can't keep pretending I'm invisible." Sarah begged her to stay to fight, but Elena was resolute. She quit the next day, leaving behind the only place where she and Sarah had found each other. The years that followed were a blur of hardship. Elena took odd jobs cleaning houses, waitressing, anything to keep her art alive. She moved to a cheaper apartment in the Bronx, her sketchbook her only constant companion. Sarah, still at Pinnacle, rose through the ranks, her talent undeniable, but she called Elena less and less. The distance between them grew, not because their love faded, but because life had a way of pulling people apart. Elena heard rumors that Sarah was dating someone new, a man to keep up appearances. The thought broke her heart, but she couldn't bring herself to hate Sarah. She had always known the world would demand sacrifices. 5 years later, Elena's life had changed in ways she never imagined. Her art, once a private escape, had caught the eye of a local gallery owner. A series of paintings, vibrant, emotional works inspired by her love for Sarah, had earned her a small but growing reputation in the New York art scene. She was no longer the janitor, no longer invisible, but the scars of Pinnacle remained, a quiet ache that resurfaced every time she passed a corporate building. Then came the invitation. It arrived in her mailbox, elegant and embossed, announcing Pinnacle's 10th anniversary gala. All former employees welcome, it read, a stark contrast to the letter that had banned her years ago. Elena stared at it, her heart racing. She hadn't set foot in that building since the day she quit. But something stirred inside Hera need to reclaim her story, to show the world who she had become. She called Sarah, her fingers trembling as she dialed the number she hadn't used in years. Are you going to the gala? Elena asked, her voice steady despite the storm in her chest. There was a long pause on the other end. I didn't think you'd want to go, Sarah said softly. After everything. Elena swallowed hard. I'm not the same person I was, Sarah. And I need to do this. Sarah's voice cracked. Then I'll be there too. The night of the gala arrived, and Elena stood in front of her mirror, her reflection almost unrecognizable. She wore a sleek black dress, her chestnut hair swept up, her eyes bright with determination. She wasn't the janitor anymore. She was Elena Martinez, artist, survivor, and a woman who had loved fiercely despite the world's attempts to silence her. As she stepped into the Pinnacle building, the memories flooded back, the humiliation, the fear, but also the love that had made it all bearable. The ballroom was a sea of suits and sparkling dresses, the air thick with corporate pride. Elena's heart pounded as she scanned the crowd for Sarah. And then she saw her standing near the bar, more beautiful than ever. Sarah's blonde hair was longer now, her blue eyes still piercing, but there was a sadness in her posture that hadn't been there before. Their eyes met, and for a moment the world fell away. Elena, Sarah whispered, crossing the room in a few quick strides. You came. Elena nodded, her throat tight. I had to. They stood there, inches apart, the weight of 5 years hanging between them. The gala buzzed around them, but all Elena could see was Sarah, the woman who had once been her everything. Then a voice cut through the crowd, sharp and familiar. Well, look who's here, said Mark, the HR manager who had signed the letter banning Elena all those years ago. His sneer was unmistakable, his eyes glinting with the same condescension. Didn't think we'd see the janitor back here. Elena felt the old fear rise, but this time, something else burned brighter courage. She straightened, her voice steady. I'm not the janitor anymore, Mark. And I'm not here to hide. The room grew quiet, heads turning as Elena's words carried. Sarah stepped forward, her hand brushing Elena's, a silent show of solidarity. What happened next would change everything, not just for Elena and Sarah, but for everyone in that room. The janitor had returned, and she was ready to shock them all. The air in the ballroom crackled with tension as Elena's words hung like a challenge. Mark's sneer faltered, his confidence shaken by the woman who stood before him, no longer the timid janitor he'd dismissed years ago. Sarah's hand lingered near Elena's, a quiet anchor in the storm, and for a moment Elena felt invincible. But the moment was fleeting. Mark recovered quickly, his voice dripping with mockery. Not hiding, huh? Then why are you here, Elena? To make a scene. The crowd murmured, some with curiosity, others with discomfort. Pinnacle's polished facade was cracking, and Elena could feel the weight of every eye on her. She took a deep breath, her heart pounding but her resolve unshaken. I'm here because I was invited, she said, her voice clear and unwavering. And because I have something to say. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small leather-bound portfolio, her sketches, her paintings, her heart poured onto paper. 5 years ago, you banned me from this gala because of who I love. You made me feel small, invisible. But I'm not invisible anymore. The crowd parted as she stepped forward, her portfolio open to a painting of 2 women embracing under a canopy of autumn leaves. The colors were vivid, the emotion raw, and the resemblance to Elena and Sarah unmistakable. Gasps rippled through the room. Sarah's breath caught, her eyes glistening as she recognized the moment captured in the painting, a memory from their early days, when love felt like a secret worth keeping. This is my truth, Elena continued, her voice steady but thick with emotion. And it's not just mine. It's Sarah's. It's everyone's who's ever been told their love is wrong, their worth is less. I'm here to show you that we're still here, still fighting, still creating. She turned to Sarah, whose face was a mix of pride and pain. And we're not alone. Sarah stepped forward, her voice joining Elena's. I stayed silent back then, she admitted, her tone raw. I let Elena bear the weight of that letter, that rejection, because I was afraid of losing my place here. But I'm done being afraid. She took Elena's hand, not caring who saw, and the room seemed to hold its breath. Elena's right. This isn't just about us. It's about every person who's been pushed out, silenced, or shamed for who they are. Mark's face reddened, his authority challenged in a way he hadn't anticipated. This is a professional event, he snapped. Take your personal crusade elsewhere. But before he could say more, a new voice cut through the tinsione, a deep, resonant voice that carried the weight of experience. Enough, Mark. It was Clara, the company's COO. A woman in her 50s with silver hair and a reputation for fairness. She had been watching from the edge of the crowd, her expression unreadable until now. Elena, Sarah, please continue. Elena's heart raced, but Clara's nod gave her courage. She flipped through her portfolio, showing painting after painting, each one a story of love, loss, and resilience. The crowd was silent now, captivated by the raw beauty of her work. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Others whispered to their neighbors. Even Mark seemed at a loss, his bluster fading in the face of Elena's art. As Elena spoke, Sarah stood by her side, her presence a quiet strength. They told their story not just of the letter, the ban, the years of separation, but of the love that had carried them through. They spoke of the late-night talks, the dreams they'd shared, the pain of hiding who they were. And they spoke of hope, of a world where love wasn't a liability, where people like them could exist without fear. When they finished, the room was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, applause began to build, starting with a young intern in the back and spreading until nearly everyone was clapping. Clara stepped forward, her eyes warm. Elena, your work is extraordinary, she said. And your courage is even more so. Pinnacle has a lot to learn from you both. Mark muttered something under his breath and slipped away. His influence diminished. But Elena barely noticed. Her focus was on Sarah, whose hand was still in hers, warm and steady. For the first time in years they stood together without fear, their love no longer a secret. The rest of the gala passed in a blur. People approached Elena, asking about her art, her story. Some apologized, their voices heavy with guilt for staying silent back then. Others shared their own stories, of loves hidden or lives constrained by fear. Elena listened, her heart full, realizing that her return wasn't just about her, it was about giving voice to everyone who had been silenced. As the night wound down, Elena and Sarah slipped away to a quiet corner of the balcony, the city lights sprawling below them. I didn't think I could do this, Elena admitted, her voice soft. But you gave me the strength. Sarah smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Elena's face. You gave me mine first. They stood there, wrapped in each other's warmth, the weight of the past lifting just a little. The gala had been a reckoning, but it was only the beginning. Elena knew there was more to do, more to say, more to create. And with Sarah by her side, she felt ready for whatever came next. But the night wasn't over yet. As they turned to head back inside, Clara approached, her expression serious. Elena, Sarah, I need to speak with you both. There's something you should know about Pinnacle and about what happened 5 years ago. Clara's words hung in the air, heavy with promise and dread. Elena's pulse quickened as she and Sarah followed the COO to a private office overlooking the glittering Manhattan skyline. The door closed behind them, muffling the sounds of the gala, and for a moment, the world felt impossibly small, just the three of them and a truth waiting to be uncovered. Sit, please, Clara said, gesturing to 2 chairs across from her desk. Her silver hair caught the light, and her eyes held a mix of resolve and regret. What you did tonight was brave. But it's also opened a door that Pinnacle has kept closed for too long. Elena glanced at Sarah, whose expression mirrored her own unease. What could Clara mean? Clara leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly. 5 years ago, when you were banned from the gala, Elena, it wasn't just a random act of prejudice. It was deliberate, orchestrated by a small group within the company. Mark was one of them. But he wasn't the mastermind. She paused, her voice softening. I didn't know the full extent of it then. I should have, but I didn't. Sarah's grip tightened on Elena's hand. Who was it? She asked, her voice sharp. Clara sighed, her gaze drifting to the window. It was Richard Hale, the former CEO. He's gone now, retired 2 years ago, but his influence lingered. He saw your relationship as a threat to Pinnacle's image, especially with certain investors who weren't as progressive as our marketing would have you believe. Elena's stomach churned. She remembered Richard, a towering man with a cold smile, always watching from the corner of boardrooms. Why didn't you stop it? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Clara's eyes met hers, filled with guilt. I was new to the board then, still finding my footing. By the time I heard about the letter, it was done and you were gone. I tried to find you, Elena, but you disappeared. The weight of those words settled over Elena like a fog. All this time she'd thought the ban was a collective decision, a reflection of the company's values. To learn it was the work of a few powerful men made it both better and worse. Better because not everyone had been against her. Worse because one man's prejudice had stolen so much. Sarah's voice broke the silence. What's changed now? Why tell us this tonight? Clara straightened, her expression resolute. Because your return, Elena, and your courage tonight forced me to face my own silence. I've spent the last 2 years cleaning housemarks on his way out, and others like him. But it's not enough. I want to make this right. Elena's mind raced. Make it right? How could years of pain be undone? But before she could speak, Clara continued. Your art, Elenate's powerful. It's a voice. I'd like to commission you to create a piece for Pinnacle's new diversity initiative. Not as a PR stunt, but as a genuine step toward change. And Sarah, she turned to her, I want you to lead that initiative. You've got the vision and the heart for it. Sarah blinked, caught off guard. Me? But I'm in marketing, not. Clara cut her off gently. You're more than your job title. You've seen what happens when we stay silent. You can help us do better. Elena felt a surge of pride for Sarah, but also a flicker of fear. This was a chance to change things, but it meant stepping back into the world that had hurt them. They left Clara's office in silence, the weight of her offer pressing on them. Outside, the gala was winding down, the crowd thinning as people drifted toward the exits. Elena and Sarah found a quiet corner, their hands still clasped. What do you think? Elena asked, her voice soft. Sarah's eyes searched hers, conflicted. It's a chance to make a difference. But it's also Pinnacle. Can we trust them? Elena didn't have an answer. They stood there, the city humming below, their past and future colliding in the space between them. For so long they'd been defined by what they'd lost: their openness, their time together, their sense of safety. Now they had a chance to reclaim something, but at what cost? The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Elena threw herself into her art, sketching ideas for the commission while grappling with what it meant to work with Pinnacle again. Sarah, meanwhile, began meeting with Clara and the diversity team, her passion reigniting as she shaped a program that could protect others like them. But the work wasn't easy. Old wounds resurfaced, and Elena found herself waking in the night, haunted by memories of that letter, of the years she'd spent feeling less than. One evening, as they sat in Elena's tiny apartment, surrounded by half-finished canvases, Sarah broke the silence. Do you ever wish we could go back? Before all this? Elena looked at her, the woman who had been her anchor through the storm. No, she said firmly. Because then I wouldn't be this version of me. And you wouldn't be this version of you. Sarah smiled, her eyes soft. You're right. But I still wish I'd fought harder for you back then. Elena reached for her hand. You're fighting now. We both are. They kissed, slow and deliberate, the kind of kiss that felt like a promise. For the first time in years, Elena felt like they were building something together, not just surviving. As the deadline for the commission approached, Elena poured her heart into a massive canvas, a mural of vibrant colors, depicting people of all identities standing together, their hands linked, their faces alight with hope. At its center were two women, one with chestnut hair, the other blonde, their love a quiet but unyielding force. When she showed it to Sarah, tears streamed down her face. This is us, Sarah whispered. This is everything. The unveiling was set for Pinnacle's next big event, a public launch of the diversity initiative. Elena felt a mix of nerves and excitement as the day approached. She wasn't just the janitor anymore, and Sarah wasn't just the marketing manager. They were a team, a force, and they were ready to show the world what they could do. But as the event drew near, a new challenge emerged, one that threatened to unravel everything they'd built. The email came 2 days before the unveiling, its subject line stark. Concerns about the diversity initiative. It was from a board member Elena didn't know, someone who hadn't been at the gala but had heard about her and Sarah's involvement. The message was polite but pointed, questioning whether Elena's mural was too personal, and whether Sarah's leadership was too biased to represent Pinnacle's values. Elena's stomach dropped as she read it, the old familiar sting of rejection creeping back. Sarah was furious. "This is just Mark's allies trying to sabotage us," she said, pacing Elena's apartment. "They can't stand that we're taking control of the narrative." But Elena wasn't so sure. The email had come from someone higher up, someone with enough power to derail the entire initiative. "What if they cancel the unveiling?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What if all of this was for nothing?" Sarah stopped pacing and knelt in front of her, taking her hands. "It's not for nothing. Your art, our story, it's already changed things. People at Pinnacle are really talking about what happened to you. To us. They can't take that away." Elena wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at her. She'd fought so hard to reclaim her voice, could she survive losing it again? The next day, they met with Clara, who looked exhausted but determined. "The board is split," she admitted. "Some see your work as a liability, others as an asset. But I'm fighting for you and I'm not alone." She outlined a plan. They'd move forward with the unveiling, but they'd need to address the concerns head-on. Elena would give a speech alongside her mural, explaining its meaning, and Sarah would present the diversity initiative's goals. "It's a risk," Clara said, "but it's also an opportunity to show them who you are." Elena spent the next 24 hours preparing, her nerves fraying with every draft of her speech. She wasn't a public speaker, she was an artist, more comfortable with a paintbrush than a microphone. But Sarah coached her, reading her words aloud, helping her find the rhythm of her story. "You've got this," Sarah said, her voice steady. "You've already faced worse than a room full of suits." The night of the unveiling arrived, and Pinnacle's event hall was packed. Investors, employees, and media filled the space, their murmurs a low hum of anticipation. Elena stood backstage, her mural hidden behind a curtain, her speech clutched in her trembling hands. Sarah stood beside her, radiant in a tailored suit, her confidence a lifeline. "We're doing this together," Sarah whispered, squeezing her hand. Elena nodded, drawing strength from the woman she loved. The curtain rose, revealing the mural in all its glory. The crowd gasped, the vibrant colors and raw emotion hitting like a tidal wave. Elena stepped to the microphone, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. "5 years ago," she began, her voice shaking but clear, "I was banned from this company for loving someone. I was told my presence was a disruption. But tonight, I'm here to tell you that love is never a disruption, it's a gift." She spoke of her journey, from the janitor who felt invisible to the artist who refused to be silenced. She spoke of Sarah, whose courage had inspired her, and of the countless others whose stories deserved to be heard. As she spoke, she felt the room shift. Skeptics softened, cynics listened, and allies nodded in solidarity. By the time she finished, tears streaked her face, but she stood tall, her voice unwavering. Sarah took the stage next, outlining the diversity initiative with passion and precision. She spoke of policies to protect employees, training to challenge biases, and a commitment to transparency. But more than that, she spoke of hope, of a workplace where no one would face what Elena had. The crowd erupted in applause, louder than at the gala, and Elena felt a surge of pride so fierce it nearly overwhelmed her. But not everyone was clapping. In the back, a small group of board members stood stone-faced, their arms crossed. Elena recognized one of them from the email, his expression cold. Clara noticed too, her jaw tightening as she joined Elena and Sarah on stage. "This is just the beginning," Clara said to the crowd, her voice firm. "Pinnacle is changing, and it starts with people like Elena and Sarah." The event ended with a standing ovation, but as the crowd dispersed, the board member approached. "This was a bold move," he said, his tone clipped. "But don't think it's settled. The board will have questions." Clara stepped forward, her presence commanding. "Then we'll answer them. Together." He walked away, his threat lingering, but Elena felt a spark of hope. They had allies now, and they were no longer fighting alone. Later that night, Elena and Sarah walked through Central Park, the autumn leaves crunching under their feet. The city felt alive, vibrant. as if it were celebrating with them. "We did it," Sarah said, her voice soft with wonder. Elena smiled, leaning into her. "We're not done yet." They kissed under the glow of a street lamp, their love a quiet rebellion against a world that had tried to break them. But as they walked away, hand in hand, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that the board's resistance was far from over. Something bigger was coming, a challenge that would test their strength, their love, and their resolve to change the world. The weeks following the unveiling were a whirlwind of progress and pushback. Elena's mural became a symbol of change, plastered across social media and featured in articles about Pinnacle's new direction. The diversity initiative gained traction, with employees sharing their own stories of discrimination, inspired by Elena and Sarah's courage. But the board's dissent grew louder, led by the same member who had confronted them at the event. His name was Gregory Vaughn, a longtime investor with a reputation for clinging to the status quo. Clara called an emergency meeting to address the tension. Elena and Sarah sat across from a table of stern faces, Gregory at the head, his eyes cold and calculating. "Your mural is divisive," he said, his voice smooth but sharp. "And this initiative is alienating our core investors. We need to scale it back." Elena's heart sank, but Clara was quick to counter. "What's divisive is silencing people like Elena. Our investors are watching, Gregory, and they're not all like you. The world is changing." The argument stretched on, voices rising until Sarah stood, her presence commanding. "If Pinnacle wants to lead, it can't hide from its past. Elena and I aren't just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for everyone who's been made to feel less than. You can't scale back justice." Her words silenced the room, and even Gregory seemed momentarily shaken. But Elena knew this wasn't the end. Men like Gregory didn't give up power easily. Outside the boardroom, the city buzzed with its usual chaos, but Elena felt a storm brewing. She and Sarah worked tirelessly, Elena painting, Sarah building coalitions within the company, but the pressure was relentless. Anonymous emails began arriving, questioning Elena's credibility, accusing Sarah of favoritism. One night, Elena found a note slipped under her apartment door. "You don't belong here." The words echoed the letter from 5 years ago, and fear crept back into her heart. Sarah, ever the fighter, refused to let it break them. "They're scared," she told Elena, her voice fierce. "They know we're changing things and they're lashing out." She pulled Elena close, their foreheads touching. "We've come too far to stop now." Elena nodded, drawing strength from Sarah's fire, but the note lingered in her mind, a reminder of how fragile their progress was. Then came the breakthrough. A young employee, inspired by the mural, came forward with evidence, a series of emails from Gregory and his allies, detailing their plan to undermine the diversity initiative. The emails referenced Elena's ban, revealing it as part of a broader pattern of discrimination. Clara acted swiftly, presenting the evidence to the board and calling for a vote to remove Gregory. It was a tense battle, but with public support growing and the media spotlight on Pinnacle, the board voted him out. The victory was bittersweet. Gregory's departure didn't erase the pain of the past, but it was a step toward accountability. Elena and Sarah stood together at the next company event, announcing new policies to protect employees and a scholarship fund in Elena's name for underrepresented artists. The crowd cheered, and for the first time, Elena felt like she truly belonged. Years later, Elena and Sarah stood in a small gallery in Brooklyn, surrounded by Elena's latest paintings. They were married now, their love no longer a secret but a celebration. The gallery was packed with friends, family, and former Pinnacle employees who had become allies. Clara was there too, her silver hair catching the light as she toasted to their courage. Elena's newest piece hung at the center of the room, a painting of 2 women, one with chestnut hair, one blonde, standing in a field of wildflowers, their hands clasped, their faces radiant. It was called Unbanned, a testament to their journey from shame to triumph. As Sarah spoke to the crowd, her voice warm with pride, Elena felt a quiet peace settle over her. They had fought, they had loved, and they had changed the world one brushstroke, one word, one moment at a time. The janitor had returned, not just to shock but to heal, to inspire, to remind everyone that love in all its forms was worth fighting for. And as Elena looked at Sarah, her partner, her muse, her home, she knew they'd keep fighting together, for as long as it took. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.